Our next and last artist for the Camino Lago public art presentations today is Eileen from Sparks, Nevada. She's presenting her proposal.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Great day, great options here. I've loved everything I've had a chance to sit in and see, which is exciting. Good choices. I thought I would kind of just wander through sort of a review of my past work and little different pictures than what you've seen before, because a lot of the pieces have me in them, so it's a little, I'm the scale object, so it's just a little something. I've won some awards for pieces, pieces that are in place, that have been in place now for at least 10 years. It's one of my favorites. It's the only reason why I own hip waders. Although right now, with the drought, the pond is dry, so yeah, it's kind of a bummer, but. And of course, doing my little media bit, Dedication Day, and some fun stuff. And my latest, my last installation was last fall in Colorado Springs. So, and a little bit about my process. I do everything design-wise as much as I can on paper in front of me first, so that I'm not surprised by anything. I like to have all the technical decisions made so that when I get to the point of actually doing the work, I can have some fun. I've solved all the stuff that I needed to be aware of technically, and then I can find things and plug them in. So that's kind of like, this is how it ends up after the process of doing the line art. And this is a flat mosaic, but I do the same thing with 3D stuff. And this is actually the fabrication for the giant poker chips in downtown Reno. And my 3-part panther, which you should never be able to tell is 3 parts, which is the whole point. And a little bit more of me on a ladder, me on a scaffold. It's me. I make this stuff. But I couldn't do it without my spouse because he's my support crew. And this is just doing the last piece of the floor in the project that I did in Colorado Springs. So setting the floor on the site. Outdoors in November. We were blessed with beautiful weather that day, and it snowed the next day. So yeah, and I've been back to double check because I always worry about installations. You know, I go back within a year, if not sooner, just to make sure everything's okay and I'm available. So, my idea for this project, though, I like to do a little historical research on the area and see what the story might be. And I've been interested in glass and water lately. And so, as soon as I found out that Peoria actually got its name because of one of the designers and all of his cohorts who came in and did the irrigation canal systems that controlled the Salt River to make the area a good agricultural area. No more floods and dry and flood and dry. You could actually control it. So there have been a number of stages, but I think it was in the 4th stage of doing irrigation designs in this area that William John Murphy, who was from Peoria, was brought out as an engineer to design the irrigation project at that phase, and then went back to Peoria and brought all his friends, and of course that's how Peoria got its name, was a ton of people from Peoria ended up here. And actually here is bigger than Peoria now, according to what I was reading, the population's bigger. But I got fascinated by the idea that I've always been fascinated by, which is government infrastructure for water. And so what I came up with was what I call Waterworks. And it's a sculptural installation. It's celebrating the control of the water in the area. And rather than stick something in the center of the plaza, what I came up with was an idea of offsetting it to the back of the plaza to create this is 4 parts, a storyteller circle. And on the floor of the plaza, I would do a poured concrete, exposed aggregate, and inset mosaic design that represents the canals after the water's been tamed. So it's a flat surface where maybe in the evenings when it's a little cooler, or in the off season when it's a little cooler, or maybe with shade, I'm not sure, but it's a good presentation space. You can have a person that tells stories, shares history. I figure it's near the library, it's near a school. It's a place to interact. And what this does is on the back, there's a representation of, and I'm going way out of my, wait a minute. I get all excited. On the back side, this is all the tributaries coming together, perhaps behind Roosevelt Dam, as an example, gathering up behind the dam where it's controlled by the structure, the gate up at the top, and it flows down into the basin below that's on the floor here and goes out into the canals to be distributed. And this is all mosaic, and it's as you can see, it's 10 feet tall to this portion about here, and has a little bit more height with the mechanism at the top. I'm considering whether that would be steel powder coated or if it's partly mosaic, but I'm kind of leaning towards powder coated steel because it would be a nice different sort of a texture and structure at the top. And I have all kinds of opportunities to put little goodies that I find on the side here. This is all glass where it's water, on this portion anyway, and high-fired porcelain glazed tile on the rest of the structure. For instance, since this is, to me, this is landscape, I decided on a crazy paving technique where it's all broken tile, because it's natural. The rest of it is a more regulated pattern that I would use. And let's see what else I told myself I was going to say. And the materials. I brought some samples, and actually the tape that those previous guys were talking about is this stuff. This is an example of the technique I would use to bring out the panels that I would be insetting in the floor, that you pre-lay in a pattern and then cut up into transportable pieces and then lay in sections. But just because it's easier to look at them that way, that would go on the back wall. The glass that I'm looking at right now, and I know in 6 months' time when I actually get to actually do something, because that's probably how long it'll take to get to that point, there may be a better material that I get excited about, but right now this is pretty much what I'm thinking about as far as colors and material. It's all a recycled glass material. I'm kind of thinking about Andre. It's like, should I peel all these off? This is. I'll hand it around to you anyway. Here's samples of this is probably the size that I would get that in, which is a smaller piece for the glass on the face, for that wonderful translucent kind of a feel. And I would do it in mosaic it in flowing rhythms and intersperse it with a little of this stuff.
This is for where now?
This would be on the face in the water. So it's a little bit of that mixed in with what's going around the other way. And this is another high fire porcelain. This would be the cement kind of a representation. I did not cut that up the way I would because I have to take it back to the store.
Oh, okay, we won't break it.
I was tempted though. And the way that I fabricate the sculptures is I use an expanded polystyrene, or as a lot of folks know it, styrofoam, for the basic structure, and do a couple of layers of acrylic cement that has fiberglass in it, and fiberglass mesh over that. So it's a good hard structure substrate when it's done, and it's nice, real tacky, perfect for doing a tile mosaic on. The great thing about it, especially in your climate, and in mine really, freeze thaw, styrofoam doesn't move. So I pretty much, you can walk out there and even on a hot day, yeah, the tile will pick up the heat, but at the end of the day, it'll cool down really fast too. It's great stuff. I have pieces installed all over the place that have held up really well. I always do a steel infrastructure so that It's not a styrofoam thing coated in cement sitting there. There are pieces, I'm planning on a footing. I'll be double checking with an engineer here and to find out what your requirements are, but probably a couple feet below ground, or 8, I think it's 2.5 feet below ground for placing my steel footing. And when we come out to the site, it just sets right down over the poles. It's not going anywhere. It's probably close to a ton when it's finished. That's kind of an idea of kids sitting out there. Maybe they take a story pad to sit on, you know, on a hot day. Maybe there's a shade structure that you guys would consider. I don't know, for the summer. Or maybe that's ridiculous. Maybe it's too hot for shade even. And one of the things that I thought about also was seating, and I just, no matter how I looked at it, I'm not sure I could fit it in my budget. But as an option, I think I threw in some ideas. Insetting stones in the plaza itself at the pour. Maybe working with a landscaped architect here or landscape designer. Someone who provides that kind of materials already at the park. And there's also some other more structural kind of elements that could be bought and installed in. I checked out pre-poured precast concrete forms that could be inset into the plaza at that same time. That would act as seating if you wanted to have seating there. One of the things I liked about the plaza was it was so big that with this offset a little bit, you had room for people to walk around the back. It's open, you could fill the entire plaza with people if you want to. If you had a musical performer or whatever, it's a backdrop. And at the same time, it's a nod to history, hopefully, in the area. And of course, I'm a really hard worker and I'm dedicated. So no matter what, I'll be in there working on your project, even if it's freezing cold in my studio. But it's not. Usually I'm spoiled.
In conclusion, our activity today included 3 artists making their final presentations for Camino Lago Park. The 3 artists presented their proposals with images, models, and budgets. And we've collected all that information. We have our 4 panelists that did the screening. To screen these finalists are the same panelists now scoring the final presentations, to which we will present to the commission and then to the mayor and the council at a later date.